The Chosen Ones, March 29th. God can no longer hide this from you because it is going to happen. I need you to stop everything you are doing right now. Do not minimize this video. Do not put it in the background, because what I am going to tell you in the next few minutes is something that God has saved for this exact moment in your life, and He can no longer hold it back. You have felt strange things in recent weeks, a gut feeling you cannot explain, dreams that seem like messages, coincidences so precise they cannot be coincidences, a restlessness in your chest that is not anxiety, it is expectation. As if something enormous were about to happen, but you cannot see what. I am going to tell you what. There is a secret that was prepared for your life, and it has reached the point where it can no longer be contained. It is leaking through the cracks. It is appearing in the signs you have been receiving. It is pulsing in that inexplicable sensation that your life is about to turn in a direction you never imagined possible. And most impressively, everything you have suffered until now, every night of crying, every closed door, every person who abandoned you, every crisis that brought you to the limit, was the exact preparation for what is arriving. If you want to understand what God is doing in your life now, do not leave this video, because the revelation that follows will explain to you why you went through all of this and what is on the other side. Let us begin with what you do not know about yourself, because that is the root of everything. You have been living with an incomplete version of your own story. You know the chapters of pain, you know the chapters of struggle, you know the sleepless nights, the bills that do not add up, the relationships that crumbled, the health that failed, the plans that went down the drain. These chapters you know by heart. But there is a chapter that was written before all of these, a chapter that came first, which was drafted before the foundation of the world, and which contains the real outcome of your story. And this chapter is not one of defeat. It is one of absolute turnaround. The problem is that the enemy worked his entire life to ensure you would never get to read this chapter. He kept you so busy with the pain of the present that you lost sight of the promise that already existed before any problem appeared. The Hebrew word for this concept is gala, which means to reveal, to discover, to remove the veil. When the Bible speaks of revelation, it is not saying that God is creating something new. It is saying that He is removing the covering over something that already existed. The secret I am telling you is not something God invented yesterday. It is something He planned before you were born, and that now, at this specific moment of your trajectory, is being discovered. And there is a reason why it is being revealed now and not before. You were not ready before, not because you were weak, but because the magnitude of what is coming required a preparation that only suffering can provide. And you have already passed through that preparation. The training is over. The season of testing has come to an end. And what comes now is the manifestation of that which was promised. A study conducted by the Institute of Psychology of USP on resilience and life transformation in Brazilian adults over 35 years old revealed a pattern that confirms exactly what spirituality teaches. Researchers followed more than 1,200 people who went through prolonged periods of adversity, severe financial crises, family losses, health problems, professional ruptures, and discovered that 81% of those who eventually experienced a significant turnaround in life reported that the turnaround came immediately after the period of greatest intensity of the crisis, not during a moment of calm, not when things were gradually improving, but right after the most difficult point, as if maximum pressure were the trigger for the rupture that opened the way for the new. And if you are living now through what seems to be the peak of pressure, then I need you to hear this with your entire being. You are not at the end. You are at the breaking point. And rupture, in God's vocabulary, means that the dam is giving way and the blessing is about to flood the valley. If this video reached you at this moment, it is not an algorithm. It is providence. God is using every tool available to reach you with this message. And if you feel that this is true, subscribe to this channel now and activate the notification bell. Because what is being revealed here will not stop with this video. It is the beginning of a sequence of revelations that God is pouring out over the lives of the chosen ones. Do this now, before continuing. Now I need to show you the spiritual mechanism behind what is happening, because when you understand how God operates, faith ceases to be vague hope and transforms into grounded certainty. And for that, I need to tell you about Joseph. Not the summarized version you heard in Sunday school, the complete version which reveals exactly what God is doing with you. Joseph received a dream at 17 years old, a dream of greatness, of authority, of extraordinary purpose. And what happened immediately after the dream? The worst sequence of events a human being can imagine. His own brothers tried to kill him. They threw him into a pit. They sold him as a slave. He was taken to Egypt, worked in Potiphar's house, was falsely accused of a crime he did not commit, and thrown into a prison. Years, not weeks, not months. Years locked in a dark cell, forgotten by everyone. And here is the detail that changes everything. At no point during those years was the original dream cancelled. God did not change his mind. The plan was not altered. What was happening was that Joseph was being prepared to bear the weight of what was to come, because his destiny was not to be a shepherd of sheep with beautiful dreams. His destiny was to rule the most powerful nation of the ancient world. And a position of that size requires an internal structure that is only built in the furnace of adversity. And the moment of Joseph's turnaround is what impresses me most, because it reveals God's timing with surgical precision. Joseph did not leave the prison gradually. There was no slow process of improvement. In a single day, he woke up as a prisoner and went to sleep as a governor. In the morning, he was in a cell. At night, he had Pharaoh's ring on his finger, fine linen robes on his body, and the second position of power in Egypt. In 24 hours. This is not a metaphor. It is a historical record. And it is the pattern God uses with his chosen ones. The turnaround is not proportional to the waiting time. It is disproportional. It is explosive. It is so fast and so complete that the people around cannot explain how it happened. And I need you to apply this to your life now. You have been looking at your circumstances and mentally calculating how long it will take for things to improve. You make projections. If I save this much per month, in 3 years maybe I can. If I do this treatment, in a few years maybe I will get better. If I am patient at work, maybe in 5 years I will have an opportunity. And these projections might even make sense in human logic. But God does not operate in human logic. When God decides that the time has come, he does not follow your spreadsheet. He runs over the calendar. He compresses years into days. He does in one morning what you thought would take a decade. And what I am telling you is that this moment is arriving for you. The HeartMath Institute published studies demonstrating that the electromagnetic field of the human heart changes measurably when a person enters a state they call anticipatory coherence. It is a real physiological state, documented with instruments, in which the heart seems to synchronize with a future event before it happens in the material plane. Researchers describe this as a kind of cardiac premonition, a change in heart rate variability patterns that precedes significant events. And what is fascinating is that this state is more frequent in people who maintain regular practices of spiritual connection. In other words, that feeling you are having, that gut feeling that something big is coming, might not be just emotional. It might be your own heart capturing, at the electromagnetic level, the approach of a change that is already in motion in the spiritual plane. Like this video now. If you felt a chill, if something vibrated inside upon hearing this, leave your like, because when you like it, the algorithm expands the reach, and this message finds other people who are at the same breaking point as you. Your like is a seed that will germinate in the life of someone you do not even know. But I need to be honest with you about one thing, because if I do not say this video will be incomplete and potentially dangerous. The fact that something great is coming does not mean the enemy is going to stand still watching. In fact, it is exactly the opposite. The closer you are to the manifestation of the promise, the more intense the attack becomes, and the most sophisticated attack he can launch against you at this moment is not an external crisis. It is an internal voice. A voice that says, "This is too good to be true. You do not deserve this. This works for others, not for you. Who are you to receive something so big?" These phrases seem like prudence. They seem like realism. They seem like maturity. But they are projectiles fired against your faith at the exact moment when the manifestation is closest. The enemy does not attack you when the promise is far away. He attacks you when it is near. Because it is in the last meter before the finish line that the fiercest adversaries appear. Think about how this worked with the people of Israel in the Exodus. They were liberated from Egypt with signs and wonders. God opened the Red Sea. He sent manna from heaven. He guided them with a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. And when they were about to enter the Promised Land, what happened? Spies were sent. They returned with a report of giants, and fear took hold of the people. They were literally on the border of the promise, a few steps from everything God had prepared, and they retreated. Not because the promise was not real, but because the giants seemed larger than the God who brought them there. And that entire generation missed the entry into the Promised Land, not for lack of calling, for lack of boldness in the final step. I am telling you this because you are at that exact point now, on the border, on the edge, on the threshold between the desert and the land flowing with milk and honey. And the voices of fear that are screaming inside you are the giants of the report. Are they real, perhaps? Are there challenges ahead? Certainly. But the question that defines your destiny is not, are the giants big? The question is the God who brought me here greater than any giant? And the answer, which reverberates through all biblical history, through all the history of faith, through all the history of the chosen ones who dared to believe, is yes. Infinitely yes. Data from the Getulio Vargas Foundation show that Brazil is going through a period of economic reconfiguration in which entire sectors are reorganizing, creating windows of opportunity that did not exist 5 years ago. New fronts of work, new income models, new business possibilities are emerging with a speed that economists classify as atypical. And here is what this means for you. The turnaround God is preparing will not happen in a vacuum. It will happen within a real, tangible, practical movement that is occurring in Brazil now. God does not operate only in the spiritual. He moves pieces on the natural board. He aligns circumstances, opens doors, positions people, creates paths. And when the hour arrives, everything converges. The spiritual and the natural meet, and the result is what people call a miracle, but which in reality is the manifestation of something that was already being articulated behind the scenes for a long time. There is a word in Hebrew that describes this moment with a precision that Portuguese does not reach. The word is kairos. Actually, kairos is Greek, but the concept is deeply Hebrew. Kairos is the opportune time. Different from chronos, which is chronological time, the time of the clock, the time that passes second by second. Kairos is the moment charged with destiny. It is when all lines converge, when preparation meets opportunity, when what was sown meets the harvest season, and the kairos of your life is arriving. Not in years, not in months, now. And the only thing that can stop you from entering this time is disbelief, because God has already done his part. The secret has already been revealed. The door is already open. The river has already broken the barrier. The only question that remains is, will you enter? Write the word "it has arrived" in the comments now. When you write this word, you are not interacting with a video. You are decreeing over your life. You are declaring that the waiting time is over, that the kairos of God has reached your story, that what was promised is manifesting. Right now, it has arrived. And I need to deepen one more point before moving forward, because it is fundamental for you to receive what is coming without sabotaging your own blessing. And this point is about worthiness, because the greatest weapon the enemy uses against you when the promise is manifesting is not fear. It is guilt. He whispers, "You are not worthy of this." And this phrase is so efficient because it seems humble, it seems spiritual, it seems correct. But it is a lie disguised as virtue. The biblical truth is this: no one deserves the grace of God. That is exactly the point. Grace, by definition, is what one receives without deserving. If you deserved it, it would not be grace. It would be a salary. And God is not paying you. He is gifting you. The basis of the blessing that is arriving is not your merit. It is His choice. He chose you. Not because you are perfect, not because you never failed, not because your spiritual record is impeccable. He chose you because He wanted to, because His love is not a reaction to your performance. It is a sovereign decision that was made before you existed. The Apostle Paul understood this like no one else. He wrote to the Ephesians saying that God chose us in him before the foundation of the world. Before you were born, before you sinned, before you got it right, before anything you did or failed to do. God's choice is not contingent, it is unconditional, and when you understand this, guilt loses its power, because guilt only works when you believe the blessing depends on you. But it does not. It depends on him, and he has already decided. UNIFSP published a study on the psychological impact of religious guilt in Brazilian adults, and the results are alarming. People who live under chronic spiritual guilt show a reduction of up to 38% in the capacity to make affirmative decisions. In other words, even when the opportunity appears in front of them, they cannot act because guilt has convinced them they do not deserve it. It is a mechanism of self-sabotage that operates at the deepest level of the psyche. The person sees the open door, feels they should enter, but an internal voice says it is not for you, and they retreat, and they lose. Not because the door was not real, but because they did not allow themselves to cross it. I am telling you this now so that you do not do that. The door is open, the promise is real, the secret has been revealed, and the only voice you need to hear now is not that of guilt. It is God's voice saying, "Enter. This is for you." Researchers from PUC Rio, who study the relationship between spirituality and decision-making, identified that people who develop what they call spiritual confidence, the internalized belief that there is a benevolent intelligence guiding their lives, present a significantly greater capacity to recognize and seize opportunities, not because they are more intelligent or more prepared, but because spiritual confidence removes the filter of fear that distorts the perception of reality. When you trust that God is acting in your favor, you begin to see doors where you previously saw walls. You begin to see paths where you previously saw alleys. And this is not naive optimism. It is a recalibration of perception that has a neuroscientific basis and spiritual backing. Now think about the complete trajectory of what I am showing you. First, there is a secret prepared for your life that is being revealed now, because the time of containment is over. Second, everything you faced, every crisis, every pain, every dark night, was the necessary preparation so that you could sustain the magnitude of the blessing that is arriving. Third, God's turnaround is not gradual, it is explosive, as it was with Joseph, who went to sleep a prisoner and woke up a governor. Fourth, the enemy will try to stop you with fear and guilt, but these voices are lies designed to make you retreat at the border of the promise. And fifth, the blessing that is coming does not depend on your merit. It depends on the sovereign choice of a God who loved you before you existed. Share this video now with someone who is on the verge of giving up, someone who thinks the situation will never change, someone who looks at life and cannot see a way out. This person needs to hear what you heard. They need to know that God's secret is also for them. Send this link now. It may be that this is the message that repositions the life of someone you love. I need to speak with you directly now because there is one thing you need to do tonight, and it is not something complicated. It is something simple, but it carries immense spiritual power. I want you, before sleeping, to close your eyes and visualize, not as a daydream, as an exercise of faith. Visualize waking up tomorrow and the financial situation that suffocates you having a solution you did not expect. Visualize your body recovering vigor. Visualize your mind finding clarity. Visualize your heart being relieved of weights you have carried for years. And while you visualize, declare, "I receive." Not because I deserve it, but because I was chosen. The waiting time is over. God's secret is manifesting in my life. What was promised is arriving, and nothing, absolutely nothing, will stop me from entering into what was prepared for me. When you make this declaration, you are not just talking to yourself. You are activating something in the spirit. You are emitting a sound that heaven recognizes. Because faith, according to the Bible, is the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And when you declare with faith about something that has not yet materialized in the natural plane, you are operating in the spiritual plane, where things are created before they appear in the visible. Moses faced this dynamic at the Red Sea. Behind him, the Egyptian army. In front, an impassable sea. No visible exit. And what did God say? Tell the people to march. March where? Into the sea. Literally, into the obstacle. And when Moses stretched out the staff and the people advanced toward what seemed impossible, the sea opened. Not before the step. After the step. God did not open the way so they could walk. He opened the way because they walked. The sea divided in response to obedience. And this is the principle operating in your life now. The door will not open so you can decide to enter. The door will open when you decide to walk toward it. The step of faith comes first. The manifestation comes after. And the step God is asking of you now is not an impossible leap. It is an internal decision. It is looking at the promise and saying, I believe, even without seeing, I believe. The Hebrew word aman, from which our amen comes, carries a much deeper meaning than so be it. Aman means to affirm, to establish, to confirm as truth. When you say amen, you are not just agreeing. You are affirming in the spirit the reality of what was declared. You are driving a stake into the ground of the invisible and saying, this is real, this is mine, this is established. And this spiritual firmness is what separates those who receive from those who stay watching from afar. It is not a matter of merit. It is a matter of positioning. Whoever positions themselves with faith receives. Whoever retreats with fear waits indefinitely. And I want to close with something that will seal everything that was said here. The prophet Habakkuk wrote something that should be engraved in the heart of every chosen one. He said, For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Read it again carefully. The vision hastens. It is not standing still. It is running in your direction, and it will not fail. There is no such possibility. There is no scenario in which God's promise returns empty. It may tarry by human perspective, but by the divine clock it is arriving exactly at the right time, and the right time is now. I know there are people watching this now with eyes full of tears. People who have lost hope so many times they are afraid to hope again. People who have been disappointed so many times they built a wall around their heart to protect themselves. And I understand. I understand the logic of protecting oneself from hope. But I need to tell you, this wall that protects you from disappointment is the same wall that prevents you from receiving the blessing. Because the blessing requires an open heart. It requires a heart that allows itself to believe once more. And I know it is scary. I know it hurts. But tonight God is asking you to tear down that wall, not with strength, with surrender, with the simple decision to say, I trust, even if it hurts, even if it scares me. I trust, because I know who is on the other side of this promise, and he who is on the other side has never failed me. Even when I thought he had failed, the secret has been revealed, the door is open, the river has broken the barrier, and all that remains is for you to take the step. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are ideal, now, tonight, because God can no longer hide this from you, and what is arriving is greater than anything you have ever imagined. And if this video touched you, I need to warn you. The next message that will be published on this channel will reveal what happens behind the spiritual scenes when a chosen one finally accepts what God has prepared for them. There is a celestial movement that is triggered. Angels are repositioned. Doors that were sealed for generations open, and a supernatural protection is activated over everything that belongs to that person. It is a revelation that complements everything you heard today. Activate the bell so you do not miss it. See you there.